1939, a few months before the start of the Second World War, Nazi Germany. After approximately 304,000 Jews emigrated, only about 214,000 of them remain in the country. 6 years of Nazi-sponsored legislation have marginalized and disenfranchised Germany's Jewish citizenry and have expelled Jews from their professions and from commercial life. After the outbreak of the Second World War, which begins on the 1st of September 1939, Nazi anti-Jewish policy becomes even more radical and varies from country to country, including direct brutal occupation and reliance upon collaborating regimes. Especially vulnerable to Nazi persecution are children. While some are targeted on supposed racial grounds, others for biological reasons such as patients with physical or mental disabilities or because of their alleged resistance or political activities. By the end of the Second World War, as many as 1.5 million Jewish children alone will be murdered or die at the hands of Nazi officials or their collaborators. Among them are 20 children from various countries of German-occupied Europe who will be killed on the night of the 20th of April, 1945, because after they were used as human subjects in medical experiments at the Neuengamme concentration camp, their Nazi tormentors want to cover up their barbaric crimes, destroying all evidence. These children will be injected with morphine and then mercilessly hanged from hooks set into the wall. The order to murder the innocent children is given by the commandant of Neuengamme concentration camp, Max Pauly. Max Johann Friedrich Pauly, the son of a household goods store owner, was born on the 1st of June 1907 in the town of Wesselburen, then part of the German Empire. After finishing elementary school, Max Pauly completed an apprenticeship as a salesman in a hardware store in his hometown, and following the death of his father, he took over the family business. In December 1928, Pauly joined the Nazi Party as well as the SA, or Sturmabteilung, which was the Nazi paramilitary force also known as the Stormtroopers, or Brown Shirts, due to the color of their uniforms. In early May 1930, he transferred from the SA to the SS, which at that time was still a relatively small and subordinate organization within the Nazi Party, primarily focused on providing personal security for Adolf Hitler and other high-ranking Nazi officials. In 1930, Pauly married the daughter of a cattle trader, and the marriage produced 5 children. However, during the Second World War, in August 1944, his wife passed away. The Nazis regarded Pauly as an alter Kämpfer, or old fighter, a term used to honor early members of the Nazi Party who had joined before the party's rise to power in 1933. These individuals were seen as particularly loyal and ideologically committed, having supported the movement during its struggles in the 1920s and early 1930s. Being labeled as an old fighter often carried significant prestige and privileges within the Nazi hierarchy. Due to his involvement in far-right attacks, Pauly was arrested several times, and in 1932 was sentenced to 7 months in prison for a serious breach of the peace after taking part in the destruction of a campaign vehicle belonging to the Social Democratic Party of Germany. On the 30th of January 1933, Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany by President Paul von Hindenburg. Starting in the spring of 1936, Pauly was classified as a full-time SS leader and attended training courses with the police, as well as an SS non-commissioned officer school in Dachau. In the summer of 1939, he was assigned to the newly established SS Wachsturmbahn Eimann, where he served as Chief of Staff. The SS Wachsturmbahn Eimann was a special SS unit established in July 1939 in the free city of Danzig, today's Polish Gdansk, under the command of SS Sturmbannführer Kurt Eimann. Officially labeled as a reserve battalion for special operations, it was in reality an armed paramilitary unit closely linked to the Danzig police administration and the SD, which was the intelligence agency of the SS and the Nazi Party in Germany under Hitler's regime. Following Germany's invasion of Poland on the 1st of September 1939, the unit's primary purpose was to oversee the internment and persecution of Polish civilians in the Polish Corridor, the area separating East Prussia from the rest of Germany. Max Pauly, as Chief of Staff, played a central role in coordinating the unit's activities, which included setting up internment camps and providing logistical support for mass arrests and executions. Under his authority, SS personnel and ethnic German militia groups carried out mass detentions and executions, particularly targeting Polish Jews, intellectuals, and resistance members. The unit was also involved in the massacre of Piaśnica, a town located about 60 kilometers northwest of Gdansk, in which over 10,000 people, including at least 1,200 psychiatric patients, were murdered. By the 30th of September 1939, SS Wachsturmbahn Eimann was formally dissolved and absorbed into the SS-Totenkopfverbände, or Death's Head units, with many of its personnel later serving in Stutthof and other concentration camps. Following the disbandment of SS Wachsturmbahn Eimann, Max Pauly's career continued within the SS-Totenkopfverbände, leading him to a central role in the administration of Nazi concentration camps. In September 1939, he was appointed commandant of the Stutthof concentration camp in a wooded area west of Stutthof, a town about 22 miles east of Danzig. The Stutthof camp had originally been established as a detention site for Polish political prisoners, but soon evolved into a fully fledged concentration camp where brutal treatment, forced labor, and mass executions became daily realities. Under Pauly's leadership, Stutthof became a place of systematic torture and dehumanization, as prisoners such as Adam Józef Rogowski, who had been active in the Polish underground, quickly learned upon their arrival. On the 10th of March 1941, Rogowski and 83 others, 60 men and 24 women, arrived at Stutthof, after enduring harsh interrogations by the Gestapo, the Nazi secret police. The group consisted mainly of people aged 16 to 45, of various occupations, mostly laborers, farmers, low-level clerks and soldiers. The moment they stepped off the buses, SS guards began beating them viciously, punishing anyone who did not immediately remove their headgear. It was then that Pauly himself addressed the new arrivals, making his intentions clear. He said, "Soldiers and officers of Sikorski's army, I welcome you to a German camp that will beat the dream of a free and independent Poland out of your heads and teach you respect for the Führer and the Great Third Reich. As of now, you have ceased to be human. If anyone forgets this, we will come to his assistance." From that moment on, the relentless beatings never ceased. Rogowski and the others were forced to stand in formation for hours, during which time truncheons and whips were used to enforce strict discipline. The next phase of their induction was no less brutal. Inside Block 13, each prisoner was made to report to SS officers in perfect German before surrendering their belongings and receiving 25 lashes. Those who lost consciousness were revived with buckets of cold water, only to be beaten again. The final step of initiation came in the bathhouse, where Rogowski and others were forced to strip naked. 8 SS men awaited them with whips and clubs, as each prisoner took turns being lashed across the flogging table. The violence was so extreme that some men lost control of their bowels, which drew cruel laughter from the SS guards. Rogowski himself endured such agony that he attempted to resist, shouting, "Go ahead and shoot me, but I won't allow myself to be beaten any longer." His defiance was met with even more severe beatings, and he was beaten until he lost consciousness. When Rogowski came to, he was assigned to one of the camp's most degrading punishments. He became part of a group of inmates forced to act as horses, harnessed to heavy carts while SS men whipped them forward. "I even wore a horse collar," he later recalled. Rogowski, positioned at the front right, suffered the worst of the beatings, as SS men and capos ensured the pace never slowed. With every lash of the whip, he was reminded that, in the eyes of his captors, he was no longer human, only an animal to be used and discarded. Rogowski was interned in Stutthof for more than 4 years, from March 1941 until late April 1945, and he survived the war. Under Pauly's command, Stutthof became a place where prisoners were stripped of all dignity. Torture, humiliation, and arbitrary executions defined daily life, ensuring that those who entered the camp quickly understood their grim fate. In early September 1942, Pauly was transferred as commandant to Neuengamme concentration camp, which he led until early May 1945. As Germany faced imminent defeat in April 1945, the SS rushed to cover up their war crimes, including the brutal medical experiments conducted on children at Neuengamme concentration camp. The order to eliminate the victims came from Oswald Pohl, head administrator of Nazi concentration camps, and was passed down to Max Pauly. Without hesitation, Pauly ensured the order was carried out, sealing the fate of 20 Jewish children and their caregivers. On the night of the 20th of April, 1945, a small postal truck arrived at Bullenhuser Damm, a former school turned into a subcamp of Neuengamme. Inside were 6 Soviet prisoners and the 20 Jewish children, all of whom had been subjected to inhumane medical experiments by SS Dr. Kurt Heismeyer. Upon arrival, the Soviet prisoners were taken to the basement and hanged first, their executions carried out by SS men Ewald Jauch and Johann Fram. Unaware of their fate, the children remained in a separate room, still talking amongst themselves. When Fram entered and ordered them to undress, the frightened children looked to SS Dr. Alfred Czerbiński for reassurance. Pauly had personally assigned Czerbiński to oversee the murder, and the doctor cynically assured them that they were merely receiving typhus vaccinations. Instead, he injected them with lethal doses of morphine before Fram, Wilhelm Dreimann, and other SS personnel hanged them, one by one. One of the executioners later recalled the chilling scene, describing how Fram carried a 12-year-old boy in his arms, telling the others, "Now I'm putting him to bed," before placing the sedated child into a noose and pulling on his body to tighten the rope. All 20 children were killed in this way, along with their 4 caregivers, a female doctor and 3 nurses. That same night, about 30 additional Soviet prisoners were also brought by lorry to the school to be executed. However, 6 Soviet prisoners managed to escape. 3 were shot while trying to do so, and the rest were hanged in the basement's boiler room. Pauly was later informed that the massacre had been completed, and he ordered the destruction of all evidence, including the children's clothes, toys, and belongings. This horrific crime became known as the Bullenhuser Damm massacre. However, this was not the only war crime Pauly orchestrated in the final days of the Third Reich. Even as the SS attempted to erase evidence of its atrocities, Neuengamme remained a site of mass murder. Only a day after the massacre at Bullenhuser Damm, another brutal execution unfolded under Pauly's command. During this time, numerous war crimes occurred, including the execution of 58 men and 13 women from the Fuhlsbüttel concentration camp. As Allied forces approached in April 1945, the SS began liquidating Neuengamme to erase evidence of its atrocities. Among the final victims were 71 political prisoners, transferred on the 21st of April 1945 from Fuhlsbüttel to Neuengamme. Many were communists, White Rose activists, and other anti-Nazi figures, though none had been formally convicted of crimes. Believing that their relocation signaled an impending release, they shared photographs of loved ones and dressed in their best clothes. They had no idea they had been marked for execution. That night, Pauly oversaw their murders. The 13 women were executed first, stripped naked, and hanged in 2 groups of 6, while the final woman, German actress Hanne Mertens, was hanged separately. Over the next 3 days, the remaining 58 men were systematically murdered, and Pauly's orders ensured that these political prisoners would not live to see Germany's defeat. On the 30th of April 1945, Pauly fled to the city of Flensburg, but was arrested in his hometown in the fall of that year. On the 18th of March 1946, the trial of 14 officials of the main Neuengamme concentration camp began before a British military tribunal at the Curio House building in Hamburg, Germany. It was the first of 33 trials that would be held over the next 2 years, brought by the British against the staff of the Neuengamme concentration camp and its satellite camps. Among the defendants of these trials were perpetrators of the Bullenhuser Damm massacre, including SS Dr. Alfred Chabinski, who defended killing 20 innocent children with the following words: "If I had acted as a hero, the children might have died a little later, but their fate could no longer be averted." He then added, "You cannot execute children, you can only murder them, but they were only Jews." On the 3rd of May 1946, 11 defendants, including Max Pauly, Alfred Chabinski, Neuengamme's executioner Wilhelm Dreimann, and the camp's work detail leader Adolf Speck, were found guilty and sentenced to death by hanging. Max Pauly was never tried for the crimes he committed at Stutthof. He was 39 years old when on the 8th of October 1946 he was hanged by British executioner Albert Pierpoint in Hamelin prison. There were no tears shed for Max Pauly.
Thanks for watching the World History Channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.